Hello and welcome to the Buddha Brunch. I am Ned Kelly. What a special show this is for me. I'm getting to interview and chat with one of my first teachers of Bible interpretation from back when I was just a little lad, metaphorically speaking, in the New Thought world. One of my very first teachers, Barrett Bennett, has been a third-generation Unity minister. She is a third-generation Unity minister. She served in the faculty at Unity Institute or Unity School of Christianity for 13 years. And she spent some time in the Middle East.
Yes, lived there a couple of years in Bahrain. Yes.
In Bahrain, along her journey. So thankful that you would join us on the Buddha Brunch.
So glad to be here, Ned, and welcome to my home. I'm happy to have you here and to be here on this wonderful program, the Buddha Brunch. I cannot think of a better conversation than food for the spirit.
First of all, you've got a new book coming.
Yes, it's called The Language of God, Metagetics, and the Bible. And the language of God refers to where the process of metagetics leaves you, which is your ability to hear God speaking to you through all of life. Everyone, everything happening in our world. I mean, imagine watching the news of the day and discerning the spiritual message coming out of it.
Why did you write this book?
The seed idea of this book actually was planted by my boss at Unity School for Religious Studies, Gary Jones, who sat me down one day and he said, Elizabeth Sam Turner did a really good job with the Bible, but she did it a long time ago. Don't you think it would be good for you to work on something that updates that a bit? So that was 25 years ago, I think, that he asked me that. And for the last 25 years, I've been interacting and figuring out and, researching and exploring and experiencing what would be the best approach to writing a comprehensive book that educated people on what the Bible is, what it's all about, while at the same time walked them through a personally transformational process that gave me my initial relationship with the Bible. Because my dad was a Bible master and metaphysician, and who taught many ministers in Unity and New Thought. And wouldn't it be great if people got a biblical education that also gave them a transformational relationship with the Bible on a day-to-day basis and got it in one book? So the language of God, metagetics in the Bible evolved.
Nice.
Yeah.
And now that this is 25 years later,
yes,
it's even 25 years newer.
Yes,
so
it is.
It's even more up to date.
Yes, it includes some of our newer understanding of Jewish and Christian metaphysics, of philosophy, and it takes us, it uses some of the methods of breath and being to take us into that transformational process. And it is amazing how it does that. We actually become the living language of God. We aren't just able to discern it in everything, but we actually become the message of God for our world.
Well, let us get into what is metagetics, but before that, perhaps, the basics. What is metaphysics?
Metaphysics is, simply put, people say beyond the physical. It is understanding scripture or literature at a level deeper than what you see on the written page. It's taking it beyond its face value to what it says about you in your consciousness and in the unfolding of your spiritual growth.
We should explore what is exegesis.
Because exegesis is the other part of the word metagetics, metagesis or metagetics. Exegesis is taking the text and putting it in its historical, literary, and cultural context. It's actually interacting with the voices of Scripture. You actually, in a sense, have a living conversation with the author of Scripture, getting to know the world of the author of Scripture, and also with the text itself and its linguistic and spiritual meanings at a deeper level. So all of that is exegesis. We see one form of it in our own metaphysical Bible dictionary. When you open and you go to a name, the first thing you'll see is whatever the Hebrew or Greek translation of that name is. And then you'll get a little bit of historical background, and then you'll get into the metaphysics that evolve out of that understanding. That's a little early work with biblical exegesis and unity.
But maybe some of that spiritual, heart-centered metaphysics part of it may have been lost. So
yes.
I think this is the perfect balance and incorporation of all of that juicy, good stuff.
Yes, that is exactly what it is. It's the dance of the dichotomy is the pendulum tends to swing this way, and then it swings this way. And what metagetics does is it brings that pendulum to center. With the exegesis, you go into it a little more deeply in a way that awakens more in you. For example, with the history piece of exegesis, there is the history in the Bible, which is the Bible understood at its literal level, the chronological pieces that you see of the unfolding story of the people of Israel, the story of Jesus and the apostles and so forth. Then there is the history about the Bible, which is the history of the authors and the world in which they lived and why they wrote the Bible. What gave the Bible its own historical framework, and what were they responding to? What was their intention? And then there is the history of the Bible, which is the Bible through human history and how it has influenced that and how that has influenced it. Sure. So these are all exegetical pieces that get you in touch with your own story. Metagetics takes you to a level of transformation in spirit, soul, body, and world. And I believe this has always been an intention behind the work of metaphysics. So to truly understand metaphysics, you just say Abraham represents faith, Moses represents the law, the divine law, and so on and so forth. But it's so much deeper than that. And that's where metagetics takes you, by understanding the depth of the interpretive process. And in one of my chapters, I actually do a brief history of the interpretive process of the Bible so that people understand what people were searching for through these ages. They weren't just searching for intellectual knowledge of something, right, but the entire experience of being. Perhaps you could give us an example using a Bible story? Let's take that story of Abraham. I'm going to use what I point out in one of my chapters as the 3 tiers of knowing. The 3 tiers of knowing. The first tier is to have preconceptions. It's like a perception of something. How we perceive something based on what we already know. Okay? The second tier of knowing is conception. We gather information, we study, like with the exegesis part of it, and we get a concept of what something is. That's even metaphysics takes you there a little bit, but this represents this and this represents this. These are all concepts. The third level of knowing is inception. It's where we get to that spiritual aha that gives us insight that is beyond the intellect. So if we understood that Abraham is considered in to be the father of 3 faiths. We know him to be a man of faith, and that he even explored the ancient world of his time, coming up across the Fertile Crescent down into the land of Canaan. Canaan, and then down into Egypt and back and so forth. And that, and then he gave birth to the fathers of both the Islamic people and the Jewish people and Christian people. And we might leave it at that. Well, isn't that nice? And wouldn't it be nicer if we just all got along? Because we all have the same ancestor. Okay. Then we take it to the concept, and we learn a little bit more about Abraham and how he was part of, his stories were part of developing this whole Hebrew and Islamic culture. We might even discover that some of the same stories in the Bible about Abraham were some of the same stories in the Quran about Abraham. Only different names, with Isaac or Ishmael, depending on which religious context you have it in. And so we understand that, wow, so Abraham at this faith level and this cultural level takes us to automatically to that interfaith. So when we say that Abraham represents faith, what is faith? Is faith the specific religion we practice? Or is it that, as we teach in our Unity Metaphysics, that spiritual power of knowing something before it happens, of having that strength to step out before you know something's going to happen? Oh, good. So Abraham represents faith in me. I've got a concept of Abraham now. The third tier of knowing, which is where Metagetics takes you, is I am Abraham. I become the action of that faith in my world. I see it happening all around me. I see when things are happening in the world that seem out of kilter, or in my life that seem out of kilter with that being of faith that I am, I see that is a way, is something I just simply need to walk through to deepen and strengthen that faith. And when I become that faith in my world, wow, then I can stand in faith for you, for everything that's happening in my world, and I can stand with strength and stability beyond fear, beyond what I know my own limitations to be, knowing at that deepest level where spirit has given me an insight and an inception that all is well, that God is in charge, and that I am part of that movement of God in my world.
I want more. Tell us when this is coming out, and I understand it's going to be part of an alternative ministry being launched.
It will be generally available September 10th. And that is just before the official launch, which is the Eastern Regional Unity Conference from the 25th to the 28th in Hampton Beach, New Hampshire this year. That is where the work of Metagetics will be launched. First the book, then the website. But once the book comes out and is available September 10th, then you can order that online. You can see what workshops and seminars are available on the website. I do the Bible in Metagetics, but something else I also do is what I call applied Metagetics. And that is a workshop with church leadership. It's called The Language of Leadership.
Excellent.
And we apply those principles of Metagetics to the history and meaning of your ministry. Our message of Unity Wisdom Academy is you are the light you seek. You are the light you seek. And our, whether it's Metagetics or working with world religion, in fact, I call it my bucket list. I have a bucket list.
Nice. Very nice.
One of the books on my bucket list is Global Metagetics, is working with world scripture at the level of Metagetics. You are the light you seek, and whatever way you're seeking it, what you're doing is discovering more and more of the light that is you. But also know that you are more than the personal you. You are spirit, soul, body, and world.
The book is Metagetics, the language of God.
It's the language of God, Metagetics, and the Bible.
Awesome, awesome. We're looking forward to that in September. Thank you for being an influence on me, a teacher of mine for many years. Thank you for this conversation and time together today. And thank you for your heart, your love.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Blessings.